Welcome to Calming the Chaos, where I help you find peace in a chaotic world. I'm Tracy Cannella, licensed mental health counselor who talks about chaos from a mental health perspective. And I give you self-help resources you can use to calm your chaos in any situation in this world. Isn't this fun? It's not a substitute for counseling or psychotherapy, but just a lot of helpful hints and tools. So if you're on board, feel free to tune in. And now, let the chaos begin. On this episode of Calming the Chaos, I am going to be talking about something that we've all experienced. We don't really understand, and we have undoubtedly had much chaos with, and that is our body's own nervous system. You know, the nervous system is chaotic, and a lot of times we are in a situation that we just get lit up and triggered, and our whole bodies feel it. Our whole nervous system feels it. And to help us learn about our body's nervous system and the chaos that it causes is Carter Doyle. And Carter is a psychiatric nurse practitioner. He helps us to understand the body's nervous system and also to calm it. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Carter Doyle, who is going to help us understand the body's nervous system and help us calm any kind of chaos we might have when we get triggered and our whole body reacts to it. Welcome, Carter, to Calming the Chaos podcast.
Hey, Tracy, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so we're talking about the nervous system, and nothing makes me more nervous than thinking about people, other people, and what they might do, right? Like they're so unpredictable.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so how would you explain our body's nervous system?
Our nervous system is there to keep us alive. It was designed to help us exist and has adapted to exist in a world that can be really hostile and inhospitable for us as social creatures that have these complex internal lives, and this ability to think about things and to remember things and integrate information in a way that really no other animal species has. It's really unique. And it comes from this place of like needing to help us survive in really dangerous places. Like for our ancestors, it made a ton of sense to feel anxious if you were being chased by a bear or a lion or a woolly mammoth or whatever else existed at the time. Of course, nowadays, we're very unlikely to be chased by a bear. Perhaps more likely to walk into the boardroom and have to give a presentation or face that family member that has just said those insensitive things and that you anticipate is going to say that thing or step on that emotional landmine that they tend to every time you're together. But all of those reactions that we have are really rooted in this nervous system that exists and gives us these feelings for a purpose, and that purpose is to help us navigate the world. And so I think before we even start like trying to, and I don't even like to use the word fix, but we try to address like what's coming up, I think we can first start, and probably ought to start, from a place of just appreciation. Like, I have this thing inside of my body that creates these intense in the moment reactions that can in the right circumstances actually save my life. And it's possible that we have these reflexes. The analogy that I like to give to folks is, Tracy, this might be a little bit too personal, but have you ever used like custom orthotics for your feet or for your shoes?
I don't think I have, actually.
Okay. So this is an analogy that's resonated with several of the patients that I've worked with, and it's kind of resonated with me. But, you imagine if you're walking around and you start to have some foot pain. Well, sometimes that foot pain can be caused by a variety of things, but it is our feet, it is our body alerting us to the fact that something here is not right. And many times that foot pain is caused by, right, we're not getting the right support. Maybe we're not walking in the most ergonomic way. Maybe we're engaging in an activity that we haven't properly prepared ourselves for. And if we continue in that pain and in that cycle, eventually our feet will begin to actually change their shape and their structure will begin to shift to better match that environment that we're working in. And that can be a good thing where it creates adaptation. It can also be a thing where we just kind of begin to morph into these structures that are less functional and that actually begin to perpetuate the pain or make things worse over time. When you go see the foot doctor and you get that orthotic, that specialized insole begins to help support your feet in the right way. And it can be kind of painful at first, but it helps to actually restore some of that natural function, the way that structure and system's supposed to work. And I think our nervous systems are so similar to that. I mean, yeah.
So people like me, like I have bunions. Okay, so you say custom orthotics, and then I think, okay, well, maybe my feet have adapted through the years by having, developed a bunion or a
Yeah.
callus, And so, yeah, I like the example that you give about the feet for sure. So, but it's not all bad, right? It's not like it can't be saved.
It's not all bad. And it's not like it was a lack of trying on your part or some sort of like failure that you had. I mean, really for carrying on with the feet analogy, right? It's not like your foot chose one day to begin to have a bunion or to begin to have a walk flat footed. It was just something that kind of began to happen out of a response to life and the way that you were living and the things that you were going through. And our nervous systems are very similar. We learn from a very young age what different types of interactions are going to create in terms of social risk for us, oftentimes with our parents and our siblings. And that begins to leave these impressions that eventually form us into the people that we, enter into as adults.
I guess maybe my question to you is, what does a chaotic nervous system look like? And we can go a little bit from there.
Yeah. When I hear the word chaos or I think of a chaotic nervous system, what I really think of is a nervous system that isn't well integrated. I kind of imagine like a system that just has parts all over the place and is very disorganized and like you're trying to fight through it. I mean, it's like a library with no organization. There's all sorts of knowledge and information and useful things and tools, but you just easily get overwhelmed by the fact that all of this stuff is just out of order and is kind of hitting you in the face and you're tripping over it and you're never really able to get to where you need to be. And all of a sudden somebody shouts at you and you turn around and you're tripping over stuff. And it just ends up being like this hot mess. And it comes from this place of our nervous system having these very normal responses, but those responses coming from a state that's really lacking integration and wholeness. And so I think part of the work that I do with clients is helping them to find that place of integration and wholeness where things can be able to flow in the way that is most helpful to that person navigating the world. I gave a presentation earlier today about trauma and the way that affects our nervous systems. And, we oftentimes, I think, don't realize the ways that the things we've experienced in life have shaped the way that we begin to move forward. After I had presented, I had a friend come up to me and they shared, they're like, until I thought about this idea of our nervous system being shaped, it finally hit me, Carter, this is why I'm so anxious when I get into a car and go for a car ride. It's from my car accident. And she was kind of beating herself up like, I should have known this. I just should have been so obvious. But many times it's not, because we've just learned to live this way and we've learned to live with this disintegration. certainly. It makes sense. If you've been in a car accident, it makes sense to get into a car and have a healthy level of care and nervousness about jetting down the highway at 70 miles an hour. Like, that makes sense. But it can also be turned up to a point where it begins to become unhelpful. And we don't have the right balance of being able to hold that nervousness and that nervous energy while also being able to hold attention and focus and a sense of calm reassurance that things will be okay.
Being in a vehicle is probably my number one trigger at this point in time.
Yeah. And that's true for so many people. And if I could just make a suggestion, and this is what, I've found helpful for myself. And one of the ways that I begin to explore this and untangle this with folks is that just notice that. Notice what is getting turned on in your nervous system and what's showing up. It's just kind of like that whoosh, almost like you're turning on that gas burner and you hear the click, 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 click. And then all of a sudden it's just that whoosh and it lights up and it kind of, it flashes over a little bit and it feels a little out of control until you dial it back down again.
Yeah, I am that Coleman stove, where you just like click, 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 click.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this thing. And yes, cars, being in cars, having people cut you off in traffic, having people ride your tail, also being stuck in traffic. It seems to me to be like a lack of power that really lights me up, and waiting in line. Like, I am at the mercy of the powers that be. My whole system lights up and says, this is not good. You have to escape. I don't know if that sounds weird, but that's kind
It
of.
doesn't. And I think, Tracy, if like we both took a step back and just noticed that thought that comes from that feeling of whoosh, like I need to escape, that could make a lot of sense in certain circumstances. That wouldn't be a bad reaction in the right place and time. But what I'm hearing from you and what I think we know is that when it happens in the line at the grocery store, it's not helping anymore.
Right. Oh, I
So,
know.
yeah.
I apologize now to everybody at Target, all right, who I've ever offended, anybody at Safeway who I've ever offended, because thank you for your patience, they say. And I'm like, I was not patient. I was like white knuckling it through this whole line because it's like TikTok, like, why isn't this moving faster? And my whole nervous system was lighted up. But you're right. It was originally maybe helpful and it served me at some point in time, but now I need to tell my nervous system to take a step back. Now, I know I think you've been trained in internal family systems, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and that's pretty much well, it's not the whole thing because you probably know a little bit more in depth, but telling something to take a step back so that you can live in your life more effectively, right?
Yeah. And I think even before we ask something in our nervous system to take that step back, because I think in many ways, right, that's what we want, right? We don't want to have to white knuckle it through that grocery store line. Mm-hmm. And we want to tell it to take a step back. But I think in most of my experience, that doesn't really work right out of the gates. Like, if we go to talk to a young child and we tell them, stop it, don't do that, that's oftentimes not as effective as starting off with a question of like curiosity and, hey, what are you trying to do? How can I help you right now? If you've ever been with a young child who's just yelling and screaming or is acting in an inconsolable way, usually the approach isn't to say, stop it. It's, what do you need right now? Mm-hmm. What can I do for you? What do you need me to know? And if we learn to respond to our nervous system that way, from a place of curiosity, kind of like Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental. Okay, so I'm standing in line, I'm white knuckling it. I feel like I want to pop off and explode.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, first, see if you can just notice that in your body. Where am I feeling this show up?
Ugh, it's right in my power center. I'm like feeling it right now. I'm back at the line at Target and I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah.
ugh.
Tracy, if you notice that in your power center, like, what does that feel like? What do you notice there?
It feels like a fire that wants to explode. It feels like, yeah, it feels like something is gonna erupt. And I would like to do what the kid in Target was doing the other day when I was there, and he was
Mhm.
just like going, "Wah!" Now, I'm sure his nervous system was all afire because, well, let's be honest, it was Black Friday. I was at
Yeah.
Target, and a kid was, wailing around, and I'm like, "Gosh, I wish I could be that kid." Just like, "Wah!"
Yeah.
And it wasn't even really that bad. It wasn't that long of a wait, but for some reason my body just sort of alerted and reacted. So I noticed it right in my power center and I noticed that it wants to explode.
What would exploding do?
I guess it would help me to feel heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It would
people would
help.
actually hear me and they would say, "Oh my gosh, we need to help you right away. Let's usher you through this process." I don't know. It seems a little unfair because I think everybody could be patient and wait their turn. But for some reason, I feel a little entitled in that area, which is awful, but true.
Yeah. Well, Tracy, I'm hearing that there are some parts of you that know that, like, okay, this response that I have to explode and to boil over, right? It's not fair to everybody else, and we all have to have patience. And you know that there's parts of you that are sharing that information, reminding you of that. And of course, I, as a fellow Target shopper, appreciate that.
Oh my goodness.
Also, I think it's fair to equally honor the fact that, okay, but there is something inside of me that's saying, Tracy, you're not being heard right now.
Mm.
And let's just honor the fact that there is something so important to being human, to being seen and heard by other people in a meaningful way. And sometimes it's just the fact that we're willing to acknowledge that sensation that we're having instead of allowing those parts of ourselves that want to jump in and just manage everything and keep us in line, acting like a well-adjusted adult who's also a therapist, not screaming and losing their minds in the line at Target and being the next viral sensation. And I mean, I appreciate that. I appreciate those parts of myself that show up to kind of restrain me sometimes. Cause like, when I see somebody screaming at their 2-year-old in Target, that certainly makes me feel a certain way. But also, like, I think we can honor and just love on those parts of ourselves that instead of meeting with the, oh, don't do that, maybe it's worth just saying, oh, you know what? Okay, I appreciate that reaction that I'm having right now. It means something, and it's coming from a place that wants to help me in this world, not just harm me or not make me embarrass myself. Like, that's not the intent.
I know. And it's so interesting though, because when I think about the nervous system and how it shows up at the most inopportune times and kind of embarrassing as well. And, I think about, my reaction even to the mail. When the mail comes, it just happened this week. I got a letter from the IRS, the Internal Revenue
Mhm.
Service. And I am not making this up, as soon as I saw who it was that was sending me this letter, it was like my body wanted to try and fight and protect me against the IRS.
Mhm.
And it didn't go away for a couple of days until I had gotten the situation resolved. But in the meantime, people in my world were actually affected by the crossfire. I really wish I would have managed that situation better because it ended up being resolved.
Yeah.
I ended up solving it and resolving it, and then my nervous system went down. But, like,
Mhm.
can I get my nervous system to calm down even if I don't have a situation where it's resolved yet?
Absolutely. And it's not easy. And what I feel like I need to say first is like, there's nothing wrong with the fact that in the moment that was hard to do and you couldn't do it. Like, that's so natural. And that is something that we don't learn. Well, I should say not everybody, but most people don't learn how to do from their parents or from their schools or from the adults in their lives when they're children. It's something that we have to learn to do as adults. And it's hard work. It's difficult to learn to do. But yeah, I think you certainly can.
Mm.
And I think one of the activities that could be helpful, Tracy, is just mapping out, putting onto paper everything that you're feeling and everything that's coming up. And instead of approaching it with the intention of trying to quell it or soften it or stop it, instead just noticing it there and allowing it to be in your world.